Okay, let's dive in. We've got a really fascinating set of sources today, and they're not what you might expect. We're not talking about grand strategy or, military tactics.
No, not at all. We're looking at something much more specific. It's this innovative program that's sponsored by the Langley Air Force Base Catholic Men of the Chapel, and they're working with the Catholic Military Apostolate.
And what they're doing is using history as what they call an ethical laboratory.
Exactly. The whole point is to develop spiritual fitness, that core warfighter ethos. And they do it by training leaders to win what is, frankly, the hardest battle they'll ever face.
The one inside their own head.
The one inside their own head. They call it dominating the internal battle space.
So for our deep dive today, we're zeroing in on this one single event from the American Revolution. It's the capture of a British frigate, the HMS Romulus, back in 1781. And it's just this perfect little snapshot of leadership under, extreme ethical pressure.
And that's the paradox, right? That's
Yeah.
what's so interesting. We are studying a failure, a loss. A British captain surrenders a really high-value ship.
Right.
But the whole point is that this loss is actually a profound act of moral strength. So what we're going to do is try to distill the three core lessons from this story, what separates a solid leader from what they call a brittle one.
And those lessons are prudence, stewardship, and I guess the ultimate test, fortitude.
Okay, so to really get what they're doing here, you first have to understand the method.
Mm.
This whole thing is built on the concept of the military staff ride.
And this is not a field trip. It's not sightseeing.
No, not at all. It's serious professional military education, PME. And the tradition, it actually goes way back. You can trace it to Frederick the Great in Prussia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he figured out that his officers couldn't lead just by looking at lines on a map. They needed to get out there to do what he called terrain walks.
To see how the actual ground, the mud, the hills, all of it, how that actually impacts your decisions.
Precisely. And then Napoleon took it further. He famously studied old battlefields. But it was really Karl von Clausewitz who kind of cemented the philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
He argued that studying real choices made by real people under immense pressure, that is what builds judgment.
It teaches you how to think, not what to think.
That's the perfect way to put it. And the modern staff ride just formalizes this. It's a three-step process. First, preliminary study. That's the homework. You master the data.
Got it.
Then the field study. You're actually on the ground, walking it, analyzing it. And finally, and this is the most important part, integration. You reflect, you draw out the lessons, and you figure out how to apply them.
So learn, walk, reflect.
Learn, walk, reflect. But the key distinction here for this program we're looking at is the purpose. These spiritual fitness staff rides, they use that exact same model, but they focus it entirely on the ethical dimension.
So they're not asking where to put the cannons.
No. They're asking, did the commander's actions show necessity? Did they maintain distinction? Was it proportional? The principles of just war doctrine. The goal isn't just to learn how to fight. It's about learning how to fight right.
Okay, so with that framework in mind, let's get to the subject. The HMS Romulus, February 1781. The British mission in Virginia at this point is basically scorched earth.
Oh, yeah. They wanted to completely ravage the state, collapse the American supply lines. One source calls it a server wipe on the revolution's logistics.
A server wipe, I like that. And leading this operation is, of course, the infamous Benedict Arnold.
And the sources set up this brilliant contrast between the two key commanders. You have Arnold, who is, tactically brilliant, a gifted general, but his internal state, his internal battle space.
A complete mess.
A complete mess, full of resentment, ego, just the classic brittle ego.
And then you have the man anchoring his whole strategy, Captain George Gayton, commander of the Romulus, a 44-gun frigate, a serious ship.
A very serious ship. And Gayton is the total opposite of Arnold. He's 57, a veteran, a solid, steady officer. He's focused on duty, on stewardship, not on glory.
And his ship is the strategic anchor. It's the shield. He's holding this critical gatekeeper position at Newport News Point. If he fails, Arnold's whole campaign is exposed.
And that's the setup. You've got Arnold driven by pride and Gayton defined by this steady internal order. And a storm is about to test that contrast to its absolute limit.
Okay, so let's talk about that storm, the catalyst for this whole ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
Mid-February, the Chesapeake gets slammed by this monster storm, a February gale. It's basically a winter hurricane.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just bad weather. The sources call it a total system failure. For a naval commander in the 18th century, it was catastrophic.
It creates an immediate information blackout, right? Communication back then is all visual. flag signals, but in blinding sleet and spray?
Visibility drops to zero. You are deaf and blind. You have no idea where the rest of your fleet is, no idea where the enemy is. You are completely on your own.
And then your technology starts to fail you. The anchors on the Romulus, these are massive, specialized pieces of equipment designed to hold a 900-ton ship steady.
And they just start dragging. The bottom is mud, and the wind is just relentless. So the ship is being pulled uncontrollably for miles off its strategic post. The entire blockade system, it's just broken.
I can't even imagine the physical toll on the crew. The sources say they were working for 36 hours straight.
In freezing temperatures with ice covering every rope, every sail, just brutal. They're just fighting to keep the ship from being torn apart by the sea.
So everything is chaos. Everything you rely on is gone. And this is where we get the first big lesson from these staff rides.
Huh?
Don't let chaos drive.
Yes, and this is the virtue of prudence in action. Prudence is that internal discipline, that practical wisdom to see the world as it actually is, not as you wish it were.
You can't shoot a hurricane.
You can't shoot a hurricane.
Yeah.
And Gayton understood that. He couldn't magically stop the storm or re-anchor his ship, so his leadership had to pivot.
The mission of holding the gate was now impossible. It had to be superseded by the new mission, survival.
Exactly. He had to keep that steady internal center. His choices had to be driven by what he ought to do, which was preserve the ship, preserve his men, not by the panic swirling all around him.
He refused to let the external system failure become an internal intellectual failure. And that ability to just calmly reset your priorities when everything is collapsing. I mean, that's the definition of a solid leader.
But the crisis just gets worse. The storm finally breaks, the wind dies down, the fog lifts, and Gayton sees his situation.
And it's an absolute trap. The Romulus is battered, it's covered in ice, and it's been dragged miles north, right into what the sources call a naval death zone.
A death zone, because waiting for him is a French squadron, and leading them is the Evere, a 64-gun ship of the line.
Okay, so his ship, the Romulus, is a 44-gun frigate. The Evere is a 64-gun ship of the line. Put that in context for us.
It's not a fair fight. It's not even a fight. A frigate is like a cruiser. A ship of the line is a battleship. Add to that the fact that Gayton's ship is damaged, his crew is exhausted. It's a complete no-win scenario.
So now the war moves from the sea into Captain Gayton's mind.
That's right. And he's facing this profound internal conflict. On one side, you have what they call the Edo action.
His professional pride, the expectations of the Royal Navy, everything that tells him you have to fight to the last man, go down in a blaze of glory.
A glorious but completely pointless defeat. But then his intellect, his conscience, presents the other side of the argument, the brutal reality.
Which is that a fight wouldn't be a battle. It would just be an execution, a slaughter of 200 exhausted men.
And this brings us right to lesson number 2, people over prestige. And it's rooted in this concept of stewardship of Imago Dei.
Imago Dei. Okay, let's unpack that because it's a core concept in this QME.
It is. It's Latin. It means the image of God. And the idea here is that every single human being has an inherent divine dignity, a soul.
So Gayton looks at his 200 sailors, and he doesn't see tools of war. He doesn't see expendable hardware to be sacrificed for his reputation.
He sees a sacred trust. He sees 200 irreplaceable souls, and his duty of stewardship means choosing the right action, which is protecting them, over the ego action, which is protecting his professional pride.
That is so counterintuitive to the whole never give up the ship warrior ethos. The truly moral, the truly courageous act was to lose.
It was. And that is a very hard thing to do. And it leads us directly to the third and final lesson. Calm in a decision. Temperance and fortitude.
He makes the hardest choice. He strikes the colors. He lowers the flag without firing a single shot.
From the outside, you could easily look at that and call it cowardice. A history book that only looks at wins and losses would probably judge him harshly.
But in the context of that internal battle space, it was the ultimate act of fortitude.
It was. Because fortitude isn't just about the strength to fight. It's also the internal strength to do the right thing, even if it means you look weak. Even if it means committing, essentially, professional suicide by accepting the loss, taking the L.
Calm in that moment is a command decision. Panic is a failure of the intellect.
Exactly. It was temperance, the discipline to restrain his pride, combined with fortitude, the moral courage to do the painful, necessary thing. He kept his internal order even when the external...
It's seen as wrong professionally in order to be right morally.
And he preserved his men. The French boarded, they took the ship without any violence, and his entire crew survived to fight another day.
So what were the long-term consequences of this incredibly difficult ethical decision?
Well, strategically, the bloodless capture of the Romulus was huge. It wasn't some minor event. It was the first real crack in the British naval shield in the Chesapeake.
It's the first domino.
It was absolutely the first domino leading directly to Yorktown. The French took the ship, they renamed her Le Romulus, and she actually fought with the French fleet that later trapped Cornwallis.
Wow. So the loss of that one ship literally opened the door to the final American victory.
It did. And you look at the legacies. Benedict Arnold, the brittle leader, he died a rich man, but he was despised by everyone. His internal mess destroyed his external worth.
And Gayton, the man who lost his ship.
He saved his men, preserved his integrity, and those 200 trained sailors eventually got back to the Royal Navy. He died a respected admiral, a solid leader. The lesson is just so clear. Ships are replaceable. That sacred trust you have for your people, that is not.
And this principle, it translates so directly to the pressures on modern leaders. The sources use this amazing modern analogy.
Yeah, the F-22 pilot, Captain Vance, he gets hit by what they call a digital gale, a massive electronic attack. His systems are overloaded, and at that exact moment, he's being taunted by a rival Chinese J-20 pilot.
The rival is goading him, trying to get him to commit an ego action.
Exactly. The temptation is to lock him up with his targeting systems. Show him who's boss. Win that momentary dogfight for clout.
But Vance realizes that doing that would expose the F-22's secret electronic signature. He'd be sacrificing a massive strategic advantage for his entire country.
Just to satisfy his own pride in that moment. That's Gayton's prudence and fortitude in a modern digital pressure cooker.
So he takes the professional L, he resists the taunt, he lets the other guy think he won, but he preserves the mission.
And if you take that one step further, this framework is maybe even more relevant to our daily lives. When your own personal February gale hits, a financial crisis, a big fight with your spouse, total chaos at work, the first impulse is always to react with that same chaotic energy.
To let the chaos drive.
Yes. But prudence, personal prudence, demands that you prudently pause. You have to find that internal center and choose the right action that de-escalates things instead of letting your ego, drive the family car off a cliff.
The same stewardship applies. The ship you're often trying to protect is just the image, right? The image of a perfect life or a perfect family.
While the souls are the actual people in the room with you, your kids, your partner, the F-22 pilot in the story had this realization that he was crushing his own daughter's spirit just to win an argument over her curfew.
And sometimes the greatest act of fortitude in that context is just to strike your colors, to be the first one to apologize, to admit you were wrong.
To sacrifice your pride to protect the people who are counting on you. You take the L for your ego to win for the relationship.
Internal order is the prerequisite for external leadership. It doesn't matter if you're on the deck of a frigate or at the kitchen table. The storms will come for all of us.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. When your world gets chaotic, when your reputation feels like it's on the line, are you going to chase the immediate clout with a loud, prideful mistake? Or do you have that quiet internal strength, that fortitude, to take a professional loss in order to protect the people who truly matter? Captain Gayton proved that who you are in the dark in that internal pressure cooker is the only thing left when the ship is gone.